It's that time of the week again, break time with. Today I'm meeting Nicole Wall of Fernleaf Community Charter School. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us on the Friday Club today.
I'm honored to be here, Sophie. Thanks for having me.
We're super lucky to have you and super lucky to have your support of the Friday Club. So lots of people will have seen some of these interviews in the past, and they know that we're all about talking to experts in marketing and admissions. And I know that you've got a really unique view on marketing and admissions because of the experience you've got in your specific school. Before we do begin, Nicole, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Fernleaf Community Charter School, please?
Sure. So Fernleaf is a charter school, just like its name says, in America. We're actually in North Carolina. And what that means is we are still a public school, but we kind of have to market ourselves because children are not districted for our school. So people actually choose Fernleaf as a place they want to send their child. It is still tuition free, but that's how charter schools work here in North Carolina. Myself, I just kind of started this gig about 6 months ago. It's kind of a long story, but I was a physical therapist for a really long time. And then I transitioned into starting my own business about 4 to 5 years ago. And that's where I learned all of these marketing skills. I've always loved graphic design. Marketing was really fun for me to build those connections and all that kind of cool stuff. So it was a really seamless transition to kind of become a marketer for my children's school. So I have 4 children, and they also attend Fernleaf, and they have for the past, this is our 6th year, and they have attended since they started.
Wow. So you've got a unique perspective then as a parent because of your background before working in schools marketing and the fact that Fernleaf is a charter school itself. And I think that brings something to today's session that we won't have talked about before here on the Friday Club. Can you tell us a bit more about you? I mean, you've mentioned there, Nicole, that parents have to choose Fernleaf as their school. Can you tell us what you think makes Fernleaf really special and why parents choose to send their children there?
Yes, I would love to. So for us, I can even give you my perspective as a parent and why we chose Fernleaf. So for us, it was really important for us to have a space where social emotional learning was as important as the academic learning. And in America, there might be a stigma about American schools, but it's either like academics are super important and that's kind of like all they cater to, or it can get kind of fluffy. And so we wanted something that had like kind of both, a good balance of both, but it was really important for my husband and I, for our children to kind of grow up and be adults that are curious and kind and thoughtful, plus have the knowledge that they need in order to move on in whatever they want in the future. So that was why we picked Fernleaf. So they're project-based learning and experiential education, which means, they're not teaching in a traditional manner of like, here is what you need to learn for math. It's more holistic, and they take a lot of field trips. It's just about kind of being within the world and how our kids can kind of interact with that. They're very outdoor-based. Nature is very important. All of those things were very important to us as parents as well. And in traditional American public schools, you just don't find a lot of outdoor time anyway. It's kind of the first thing that gets cut. And that just wasn't going to work for my husband and I.
I understand that. That sounds brilliant. And I think, what better testimonial can a school have than a parent able to articulate why they wanted to send their children there and then end up working in that school's marketing department.
Yeah, so, that's true.
Yeah, with your marketing hat on, how do you go about marking those very special things about Fernleaf that you found when your children attended?
Yeah, it's hard, it's hard no matter what, but I have found there's so many things that we do. I think one thing I started recently was a blog for the school. And so I'll put, kind of staff spotlights or even just like I have it hasn't published yet, but we're publishing it soon on social emotional learning and just kind of the evidence behind that, why that's important, and then how Fernleaf integrates that. So a blog can be a really cool thing because you can continue, digitally, it's very easy to share that kind of stuff. Photos are really important. So showing kids in an outdoor classroom, So we've kind of beefed up our social media. So we're on Instagram and Facebook. We created a Facebook group for our
Right.
existing families, which actually has been really lovely because, you know, your existing families are really your biggest marketers. You want to foster those relationships. So that has been something that's really great. And then just consistent communication with those families. So we do a bi-weekly newsletter for families with like announcements, but also like sharing the blog posts and cool things like that. And then it gets those parents excited, and then they'll share the blog post. You know, it's just a way to continue to get the word out as much as you can.
Absolutely. And you've talked to me in previous conversations, Nicole, about the importance of staying in touch with all families that have interaction with the school. Are any of those families able to support your school in other ways other than giving parent testimonials, for example?
Yes, we do. We do have a way for parents to even just donate, because as a charter school in America, we actually get less funding than the traditional public schools, which is interesting. But so we do rely on community support. So one way, honestly, this is still kind of on my to-do list, but my hope is to create kind of a quarterly newsletter for people who are on like a giving email list for us. You know, donors in the past, we've had lots of donors, really amazing, generous gifts. So we just want to help keep them apprised of what's happening, because as Fernleaf continues to grow, it's like their investment is growing, right? It's expanding, and we want to show them that what they gave us before, we are good stewards of it and we're making good use of it, and here's how we're growing it. So just to continue to stay in contact with them, either through an email newsletter and social media, right? We have the social media so they can continue to, you know, see the timely things that are happening within the school.
Absolutely. And it sounds as though if, you know, a donor has given a gift to the school, they can then see, or they can almost see where that's been put to use that way and how it's benefited the students. Yeah, that sounds brilliant. Do you find that keeping in touch makes it more likely that you'll get repeat gifts from those donors?
Yes, for sure. Because I mean, some of our donations have been like outrageously large and generous for a public school, right? You kind of expect that for a more private institution.
Yeah.
So for a public school, we're just kind of shocked with the generosity of our community. So yeah, for sure. And it, you know, it's just kind of kind, right?
Yeah.
To share and to even share that like on our public platforms, like, hey, this person was super generous. And you know, I think most donors are mostly want to be anonymous anyway. They don't really care, but it's just kind of a thoughtful thing to share that these people are amazing in our community, you know.
Yeah, and it's all about that community. I really get a sense of that just speaking to you. So I think that's so powerful.
Yeah.
You've talked a little there about having a quarterly newsletter for donors, and you've talked a lot about the ways that you keep in touch with current families at the school as well. Do you find that students themselves get involved with any communications that you put out?
So it's a good question, Sophie. We are currently a K through 8th grade. We are going to grow to 12th grade. So we're going to go all the way up. And we also have a no technology policy right now. So children aren't allowed to have cell phones. So most of our kids are not on any platforms right now, because we're only going through 8th grade. We're following that wait till 8th, which I don't know if that's an American thing or what, but basically it means, you know, having your children wait until 8th grade before you give them any kind of personal technology. Yeah. So our kids are really not there. So I would say the students are not necessarily following yet, but that is part of my plan too, is to how do you create a space where parents are paying attention to things, but also kids are going to be, you know, I mean, they're in 9th grade, you're doing your own thing at this point. So they're going to want to follow along too. So how do you cater to both audiences and market to both audiences?
And do you find that what you do on those social media channels that is then more targeted to parents, because they are the ones that are more likely to be using those channels, do you find that that does bring in prospective families into the school for you?
You know, that's a good question. We're trying to be better about figuring out where people are coming from exactly. But I will say, when I started about 6 months ago, there really wasn't a social media presence. And since I've started, there has been a lot of really positive feedback, a lot from existing families, but even families coming in as I'm meeting them, and they kind of know, like, oh, you're the one doing the social media. That's amazing. I love seeing what the kids are doing and seeing all the things that are happening at Fernleaf. So we have we have gotten so much positive feedback about the social media. So that's been interesting. I don't know how much it's affecting our enrollment, because it's only been really 6 months of us doing it. But I think by next year, when we do we start our enrollment in January, we'll have more data on whether or not that has been helpful.
So you're at a really exciting point then, in terms of seeing what does impact enrollment, what does impact engagement. Is there anything that you're expecting to impact that engagement the most out of all the activities that you do currently?
I have found, so definitely through like Instagram, and then the Facebook group, right, which is only for enrolled families. So if you're not enrolled, you can't be a part of that. There has been a lot of engagement in there. People have really liked that. They can connect, especially because we're about to start a new school year. So there's a lot of new families. And so then they can connect with other families. They can ask questions, like, because Fernleaf's kind of a non-traditional school. They're like, what does this mean? We don't really know how this works. And then families who've been there for years can answer the questions. And so it's just kind of building that culture of thoughtfulness, kindness. We help each other. We're not going to like bash a parent because they don't understand what's happening, those kinds of things. So that has gotten a lot of engagement within our enrolled families, which I do believe helps with enrollment for the next year, right? You want to retain the students you have. I think that's a really important thing to foster, is the sense of community within your currently enrolled people.
And I think from my perspective, if you can see the community as an outsider in it, how they interact with other families, you immediately want to be involved in that community and be really active in there. So I love that. Thank you. One of the things that has really stayed with me about our initial conversations, Nicole, is that you said to me that there aren't many resources out there specifically for school marketers. And as somebody who's working in the charter school environment, I'm wondering if you have any specific advice or tips for any school marketers that might be working with limited resources or a limited budget, or a combination of the two.
Yes, I do, actually, because I basically just started it. And I think it's different for a private school. I actually think I found quite a bit of resources for people who are within private school marketing. It seems like that's kind of the communities you can find. And so even me interacting in those communities, people will be like, what? I don't understand what a charter school is, or what do you mean you're free? That doesn't make any sense to me. Why are you even marketing? So I have found a lot of online, that's how I found you, Sophie. I think that's a great place to start, is you can find Facebook groups. You just kind of start connecting. If you can find hashtags, you could go to LinkedIn or Instagram and kind of search some hashtags. I found some people that way. And I think too, I recently just found someone who's local, who has a really similar philosophy. She actually is a marketer of a private school, but she has a really similar philosophy, and we've kind of had similar struggles as the like marketing person who, as marketers, right? We're not really in the administration, but we need to basically know everything that the administration knows in order to market. But we don't, there's like those struggles. So we kind of have the same struggles. So finding someone locally that you could connect with too, I think, is a really powerful thing. I think, you have to have the mindset of non-compete, right? You don't want to go into it and be like, oh, she's so much better, or like, I don't want to, or you feel like you're competing, taking their students, right? So I think it's important to come in with a collaborative intent, right? Because I think it can be pretty like, I want your students and you want my students, but I don't think it has to be that.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons that I personally love working in education, as well, because there's not this competitive nature. It is so collaborative, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone that I've met has been so happy to share their experience, their tips and advice. So yeah, I'm super grateful for that, as I know that lots of listeners to this will be. I think you've given some really brilliant advice there. I love to find people kind of locally or in your internet networks. Nicole, what's new for you in the new academic year at Fernleaf?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like we have a lot going on. We have recently hired an adventure sports coordinator, which is totally new to us this year. So the kids will have things like backpacking and mountain biking, cool things like that, which is going to be huge for us this year. We have open enrollment begins like January through March. So we kind of need to figure out how, like with COVID this year, I don't know how it is over there, but in the States, it's creeping up again. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. We need to kind of figure out what's happening with tours and how to handle, getting people the information and the community feel that we're all about virtually. So figuring out how we're going to handle that kind of stuff. Just, same old.
So you'll have your work cut out there. And I think we all were hoping COVID would be long gone by now, but just touch wood, it is something for the near future. I can't wait to see your school adventuring on your social channels. So I'll keep my eyes peeled for that.
Yes.
One of the last things then, Nicole, we always like to ask our guests this, but what is your favorite thing about working in school marketing?
I would say the first thing that comes to mind, Sophie, is the team that I work with. Working for and with teachers is so fun because teachers have this incredible mission in the world, I think. And so being able to promote that mission and put that mission out into the world so that we can get more families to be a part of it feels like really important work to me. So that's my favorite part, is being with a team of people who are super creative, hardworking, like they love their job. They love kids. It's so easy to market something like that when they're, giving me this amazing stuff that they're doing. So I think that's my favorite part, working with this awesome team.
Wonderful. And it certainly comes across how passionate you are working with your team and working at Fernleaf. So thank you so much for sharing your insight with us today. We're really grateful. You've been such a good guest, and we look forward to seeing what the new academic year has in store for you.
Thanks, Sophie. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We'll talk soon, Nicole.
Bye-bye.
Bye.